China has ballooning debts, but it still needs to keep its economy growing strongly. China's economic blueprint for 2018 was revealed at an annual economic conference attended by its top leaders. It's watched by investors for clues to policy priorities and economic targets in the year ahead. Maria Ramos is here with the details.
Thanks, Hazza. Let's take a look at what they had to say. Well, leaders at China's economic planning meeting said the economy has shifted from a high-speed growth stage to one of high-quality development. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, in a Chinese context, it means high wages and lower pollution. President Xi Jinping is essentially rubber stamping what he said during the twice-a-decade Communist Party Congress back in October. Now, China's growth has been stratospheric. In the early 1970s, it was poor. It had a GDP per capita similar to Zambia. After it implemented economic reforms and embraced free market principles later that decade, it saw growth close to 10% per year until 2014. It's still growing at 6.9%, and that's been fueled by debt. But there's speculation that the size of China's debt load may be 3 times the size of its economy. Now, let me just give you a sense of China's spending right now. There's frenzied construction of subway systems all over the country. For example, in Nanchang, a city of 4 million people, they're spending $18 billion. That's a third of the city's annual GDP to build 5 subway lines using bank loans and bond sales to finance them. Essentially, China wants to wean the economy off debt-driven growth. The Chinese economy is huge, so anything that the government does to control its ballooning economy is being encouraged by investors, the IMF and the World Bank. Now, Professor of Economics at New York University, Anne Lee, breaks it down for us.
Government is basically trying to reduce poverty, and they want to also reduce pollution and try to minimize all the risks that their economy faces. They certainly don't want a crisis on their hands, so they want to ensure that the debt doesn't grow out of control. I think they realize they still have to rely on debt for some of their growth because they're not prepared to engage in austerity measures, but they certainly don't want the debt issue to overwhelm other economic objectives, and so that will be one area of focus. But I think that would be good news for the global economy, because as long as China continues to grow steadily, that will lift other economies and enable them to also grow instead of falling into stagnation. A lot of the debt is associated with property development, and they certainly need more property in order to house all the very poor people they still have living in the country. But so far, most of the developers are only incentivized to build expensive property that the wealthy can invest in but not live in. And so this exacerbates the income inequality and doesn't lead to balanced growth, which is what the government would like to see. And so they're going to have to issue new regulations in order to ensure that speculation is under control.